So I'm now recording cohorts. I'm going to go ahead and upload this to YouTube for a moment so we can get it crossed over and upload it to my Portfolium. Can you just do a little raise your hand if you agree? If not, you can cover up your face, please, because I'm still going to do it. Hello cohorts. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight. My name is Shauna Oliver, and tonight's topic is conflict management and strategies. As we discuss conflict and conflict management strategies, my goal here tonight is to have you take away 1 or 2 tips so that you can navigate your way through conflict like a leader. So I'm going to try and share now a little PowerPoint because, you know, I'm sure you want to just look at myself all night.
You're very pretty, though. It's okay.
You were very nice. Let's see if this works.
Oh, Lord.
I know, right? Let's see. Fingers
Here
crossed. Here we go.
Fantastic.
1, 2, 3. No, I don't want to share it like that. Done. I wanted to hit the present button, not the share button. My mouse is really, can you hear me? Click, click, click. Okay, here we go. So, conflict management strategies. As you know, oh, look, it's going so fast now. Conflict, it's going to happen. We know this, and understanding the type of conflict that you're dealing with helps you to determine the type of strategies that you may want to use. Realistically, there's no one single solution for conflict management. So individual perception can be wildly different from one person to the next, and one strategy should be explored and strengthened if necessary. Most importantly, individuals should understand that some strategies, when combined with certain conflicts, may result in a negative outcome. And I think anybody who has experience in just with any kind of conflict knows that sometimes things can go really, really bad. So let's understand what conflict really is. So in short, it's when individual feelings are engaged and we start feeling, right? And they will feel confused, uncomfortable, or attacked. And conflict can occur if one person perceives they have lost power, esteem, autonomy, or self-determination. So conflict has a tendency to escalate and to be exasperated by that mirroring images, which I know we read about that in our book, but really what that breaks down to, if you come at somebody and you're really upset and mad and you're giving off a lot of emotion, if that person doesn't know you're coming for them or understand why you're so angry, it will escalate very fast because they're going to get defensive and they're going to give you back exactly what you're giving them. So that's what that mirror imaging means. So conflict resolution then begins with who's involved, but not necessarily how the conflict began. And that as a leadership, what that means as a leader, you'll know who the players are, but you don't know how we got to the conflict or what kind of started to get us to this point where you have to kind of step in. So if you know what the conflict is that you're dealing with, the best thing that you can do is understand the best strategy, hopefully to resolve that. So one thing that you want to know is your conflict management style. And this, again, was straight from our books where it was talking about being assertive or cooperative and a little bit of everything kind of in between. So here, you have the choice of being part of the problem or being part of the solution. And the process really does start with your initial reaction. Of all the things you wear, your expression is the most important. And that was by Fritz from another one of my books that I read, which I really liked because that reminded me of a quote that my dad had shared with me when I was a teenager that he got out of Reader's Digest. So that's like a really long time ago. And the quote said, the fingers of your thoughts are ceaselessly molding your face. And that particular quote kind of has stuck with me my whole life, because really what it meant was, no matter what I'm thinking, there are people out there that will be able to tell exactly how I feel about what it is that they're saying. And that is, learning how to control, like for me, is learning how to control my eye rolling, because I do that a lot. And especially if I don't like what I'm hearing, I start to, it's like I'm just looking for thoughts in the back of my head. And it comes off very, it comes off rude, to be real, to be honest, even if I'm just trying to pause and collect my own thoughts. The majority of people would perceive that as being dismissive and being kind of rude. So your initial reaction, it can be perceived as dismissive or responsive, depending on how you manage that conflict. So being a problem solver, it requires courage, and leaders must face challenges head on and without delay. And you want to be aware of your focus, and you have to ask yourself, really, again, are you part of the problem, or are you going to be part of the solution? And understanding your style is more important to achieving that win-win outcome. So I like these animal references that I found that kind of go along with each one of the styles, because it was, at first it was a little bit hard for me to really relate to any one of the styles, as I tend to kind of cherry pick a little bit out of it, each one of them. But when you kind of go through and I started looking at it from this angle, I kind of liked it. So as you know, the compromising, they say it's like the fox. And I'm not going to go through all the bullet points here because you guys can read. But I like the characteristic skills, the negotiating, finding that middle ground, assessing value, and making concessions. This can be viewed as being aggressive but cooperative. So it's important, that both parties achieve that basic goal, but sometimes with the compromising, the leader is the one who compromises out all of their goals so that the other two people can, come to an agreement. And that's not always the best way to do it. You've got the teddy bear, which the accommodator, right? They want to avoid that conflict by positive thinking. So they say a lot of things like, oh, so you're having a bad day. Well, at least you have a job. So it comes off really dismissive, and they just don't want to get involved, and they're doing their best really kind of to shut you down and move you along. The downside to this style is, it's just viewed as being dismissive, and, it's hard then to really be able to trust that manager when they don't want to make time for you or help you along with those conflicts. So then we all know the shark, right? This is the guy that wants to win at all costs. He's the competitor, most likely to try that win-lose approach, especially if he or she is involved personally in the conflict. Can be viewed as confrontational, assertive, and aggressive. This is that manager that really just wants to win at all cost. So you can kind of think about it as, also as that manager that just do it because I said so. Now the shark might be great if you're in the middle of a emergency and everybody needs to clear a building. You kind of want that shark to come out at that point, because you need to do what I say and do it now, because it's just a matter of safety. But if it's for any other kind of conflict, probably a little difficult to get behind. So then you have the turtle. I like this little turtle, but not always the best. So we have the avoider. This is that one that would, we'd rather avoid conflict at all cost. They want to remain neutral. They can be viewed as non-confrontational. They ignore pass over issues. They deny issues are even a problem. This one is also can be kind of frustrating if you're the person who is involved in the conflict and your manager is the turtle, because they just don't want to help at all because they don't want to pick sides. So it just comes out, I mean, it really can leave both parties feeling with a lot of hurt feelings, and just like all we want to do is just make this better, and it ends up making oftentimes things worse. So and the last animal is the owl, collaborating. So they're the active listener, they're identifying concerns, they're analyzing the input. The owl is the one who brings people together to discuss, for a discussion towards that win-win solution, and can be viewed as both being assertive and cooperative. The ultimate goal for the leader is to have that skill set to convert the conflicts into accommodations, compromise, or better yet, consensual agreement. So let's go through some strategies, the 1, 2, 3 strategies for success. So the first thing as a leader, what you want to do quickly is try to diagnose the cause of the conflict in a rational way to begin, so that you can begin to manage it. So you have to remember, leadership begins, continues, and ends with good communication, and your goals as a leader should be to find a process for resolution. So this can be done by, I'm going to give you 3 tips. So the first one is to clarify what the disagreement is about. During the process, gather as much information as possible and make sure both parties understand the issue. Identify the problem, but focus on that solution. Second, you want to convert the conflict into established common goal. If both parties share the same goal, the manager has the opportunity to take the conflict and convert it into that compromise. Successful resolution is made if both parties can agree. Last, both parties should acknowledge the agreed upon solution and take ownership of their responsibilities in the resolution. This can be done by having each party use a phrase like, I agree to. When I got done with this, I kind of realized as a parent, that is how I parent in those conflicts. With my girls are all adults now, so but as little people, I was giving them those coping skills and conflict management skills from the time they were small kids. As an adult and working in a large corporation, you realize that a lot of people don't have the strongest coping skills, and that leads to a lot of our conflicts that we have. Especially if one side has a lot of coping skills, we tend to get a little frustrated when somebody who falls a little bit short of those. So we do have that opportunity as leaders, even if you're not in management, to help our other employees or the people that sit around us, how to develop those coping skills. In conclusion, the conflicts come in many ways, more than we can all imagine, and they're as unique as the persons involved. Your management style can lead the conflicting parties down a road to the win-win resolution, or you can derail both parties by creating a lose-lose outcome. Win-win solutions require more communication skills, and the process does allow for individual growth for all parties. The conflict may be, or actually not the conflict, but the challenge actually may be finding either a good solution, a better solution, or the best solution. And if I think we started to really look at those 3 options, we would have much more positive win-win solutions for everybody. And that would even be, from our personal lives to our professional lives. So with that being said, any questions for me? I'm gonna do the stop sharing here. Hi, everybody.
Hi again.
So does anybody have any conflict stories where they have kind of flipped your lid and you stopped thinking rationally?
I think the first modern, like really serious work conflict I had a coworker just suddenly explode at me. It was after my shift and I was giving a report because her shift was starting. And I said, "Oh, okay, you're upset. What's wrong? Let's talk about it." And it started this like 45-minute, she's just insulting me and she's saying everyone else feels this way, but they don't want to tell you. And then by the end, I was like, all right, well, we need to go to management. We need some sort of coaching. And she said, he communicates too much and I'm overwhelmed. And I thought, all right, this is ridiculous, right? My managers are going to say, okay, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And they said, Brian, have you tried communicating a little less? And that has a lot to do with why I'm in this major. That was the start of it.
For that 45 minutes, were you clocked in or no?
Oh, I was clocked in.
My priorities, you can see them.
I had a manager. I was finishing with a taxpayer, and I think I just had closed a case, and I finally got them to file, and they filed probably about $15,000 worth of tax. And well, that's a normal day for me. So I hung up the phone, and I actually had the manager come over and go, would you mind talking to your taxpayers a little bit quieter? You're interrupting me. And I'm like, I'm just doing my job. So that was kind of like the final straw. I don't know what she did, but she chose me to be her person to just pick on. So I was frustrated, and I'm like, I went to my senior manager and I said, I don't know if I killed this lady's dog in a previous life, or if she thinks I go home and torture puppies, but I cannot make this lady happy. I'm like, I am on the phone chit-chatting with a friend. I was getting a taxpayer to file a return, and she comes over and complains. I don't know what else she wants from me. Well, I wasn't the only one. And I find out that I wasn't the only one that was, having issues with her. But it kind of got the ball rolling, where she was then brought in and talked to and say, lady, cool your jets. Because, she's a new supervisor trying to make a name for herself. And
she did, not probably the best way, though.
Now she's like my BFF.
Oh, how funny.
Not literally.
But good work friend.
Yeah. Well, she leaves me alone. That's important.
There you go. There you go.
But that's I have to write my crucial conversations, but I'm going to use that one as an example. That if I had let it go, which I almost did, it would have been continual, and it would not have. It
wouldn't stop.
No. It would have probably gotten worse.
No, I had a manager that at one point we were equals, and he got a promotion, and I was excited for him because I really liked him. I had gone in and told him that I would like for him to kind of mentor me, so that if he were to get another promotion, I could slide in to his position. And he took that as pretty much as I wanted to get him fired. And then after that. He was it was on. He was on it. He would find me coming through a stairwell and yell at me. I would get into I would be crying hysterically. I tried talking to our other manager that was above both of us. Everything was kind of falling on deaf ears. I did not feel comfortable going to HR because that was his wife. My manager's wife. So I felt really stuck. And so then I had to kind of figure out a way to prove to upper management. I was applying for other positions within our company. It finally came down to I had to prove to upper management that he was kind of off his rocker. Like he was really creating a hostile work environment. And it wasn't until finally one day I walked by his office and didn't wave at him as I was going to go see the other manager, who I was getting called into the office just to chat, really, and had a pleasant conversation with him. 15 minutes after I was done, I was called into my manager's office, and he began screaming at me because his question was, how do you think it makes me feel that my employee doesn't even wave at me as on their way into my boss's office? I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe you shouldn't have been so rude.
I was hustling. I was walking in. I didn't really see you. So he was screaming. I just opened the door, and finally I pulled our other manager in. They could see, like he had veins popping out like all over his face. I couldn't have been more happy, but I couldn't show all my excitement. And the next thing I know, I got the job that I wanted upstairs, and I no longer had to report him. Actually, I got to move my desk that day. So that worked out really good for me. It was good timing for him to show that. And so after I actually ended up quitting a few years later, I quit that job, and that same manager that yelled and screamed at me wrote me the nicest letter of recommendation for nursing school. So, like you, Lisa, you can fix things. Things can be fixed. Not everything is completely just shattered and torn apart. Because there was a time where I wasn't sure if I could hold back and not run him over if I saw him on the road.
Oops.
Yeah, it was bad.
I did my video on workplace bullying, and I was reading it. It was saying like 70% of workplace bullying, it comes from like the supervisors and the managers. And I was thinking, I've dealt with a lot of workplace bullying, but all of it came from my coworkers, and it was really confusing to me. And then I realized I've had managers who have done similar things, but I always go into their office and then I say, okay, well, first off, you are never going to yell at me like that again. Do you understand? And that's how I don't like being shouted at, especially not by someone who's being paid more than me. It's just a matter of principle. And I realized after looking at your conflict management styles, it's because I'm reasonable and I'm nice with my managers, but I'm also very assertive. Like I'm very assertive and I'm fairly aggressive. That's not appropriate, and I would never talk to you that way. So you're going to stop right now. But with my coworkers, I'm very accommodating. And so if they want to be aggressive, they just go on to be aggressive. And I'm like, whoa, hey, we don't need to fight. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm trying to be supportive here. And it was funny because it really, really, your list really drove the point home for me, because it was like, oh, and I think I even touched on that in my video. It was like, yeah, I tend to be very passive when it comes to my coworkers because I want to be supportive of them.
It also kind of depends on too, how well you know that coworker too. So if you know that they're a little bit sarcastic or they're just kind of being funny, certain things don't really affect you, right? As opposed to that person coming out of the left field and they're just next thing you know, you're cornered in your cubicle and, somebody's screaming at you or like, what? That's when I'll turn into a turtle. I'm like, don't hit me, please. Let me go.
I had a manager who we were close friends for a while, and then he got promoted to manager and then director. And he decided he didn't like me. Like, okay, whatever. And he lost it and started yelling at me, and I did what I always do, like, hey, that is not appropriate. You're not going to do that. And he said, what did you say? And he stands up and starts screaming. Well, the guy was 6'5" and like 375 pounds. He was this massive guy, and human resources was like, whoa, you can't do that. You are huge and you are intimidating, and you better sit down right now. And but I remember thinking at that time, like when he stood up over me and started shouting, yeah, I had a lot of bravado when we were both sitting down. But as he's standing in a rage, I remember thinking like, oh God, I am so intimidated right now. And I just got really lucky because he called HR in for backup for him. And they were just like,
oh, that's good.
The line somewhere.
Oh, that backfired.
Yeah, you've gone too far. You can't fill in the doorway and scream at your employees. That's assault, buddy.
Right? Yeah.
Very
So
good.
yeah, that's a you could tee him up real nicely for creating a hostile work environment.
My husband's a supervisor, and he also works in the tax. We work not in the same department, but we both work for the Department of Tax and Fee Administration. And he went into a staff meeting, and when he thought he was fine, you know, and some of the stuff they were saying was outrageous, but he just he tried to keep his mouth shut. And then his supervisor came and said, yeah, yesterday at the meeting, people were saying you were rolling your eyes at people. He's like, I wasn't. And she's like, well, that's what people were saying. He's like, okay, fine, well, I'll watch it. So the next time he went to the meeting, he kept his head down and really, I mean, didn't make eye contact with anybody. And then they were saying that he was being aloof and wasn't making eye contact. And he's like, he started out said, at this point, I'm considering this harassment, because first I'm rolling my eyes and I'm not making proper eye contact. I don't know what you want from me, but it's harassment now, because I have done everything that you've asked me to do. And it turned around after that. But I honestly think with conflict with anybody, if you don't speak up for yourself, you know, there's gonna be someone's gonna lose. And I like to think I'm a teddy bear, but I know I'm a shark because I like to win and I'm very competitive. But I also don't want to be walked on either. You know?
Right. I don't want the word welcome right here.
Thank you.
Know, and just, you know, use me like a little doormat. But, and also, you know, our conflict style probably changes when we're at home versus when we're in the workforce too. So you might be a little more of a shark when at home. I'm
raising 3 sharks right now.
I'm sorry.
Me too.
Yeah.
However, they're very independent. But I'm raising 3 of them.
You got to take your wins where you can, right?
Yeah.
My story about conflict management was more than, you know, I was, as you described the animals, I'm definitely an owl, you know, but my employee was definitely a shark. So
that's interesting.
It's and she was, to me, she was an effective employee because she needed minimal supervision, and I was able to delegate certain tasks, and she definitely had a lot of leadership qualities, but she was a shark, which really robbed off a lot of people within the organization. So many of them would, because she would treat them as, and she was older also, she was the oldest of the person, so I think she had that mom complex that she wanted to mother the rest of the team. But for me, I went to the position, you know, I was promoted with a position, so we were peers at one point, and we worked together, and then I kind of went up the ladder, and she was able, you know, and she stayed where she was. So when she got into that shark, you know, because she was the one creating the conflict at many times. So trying to identify the concerns for the team, you know, that she was bringing. Sometimes she had some valid concerns, but it's just like crucial conversations that we read. She just didn't know how to present herself. So she always seemed to be debating, and she wanted to always be right, and she was very assertive about her opinions. So reading about this, it makes sense about the conflict. And at one point, I had to bring another supervisor, another director of the program, to kind of help me mediate, to control her when we resolved, because we had a lot of transparency. So when there was an issue, we brought it to the table and we found the solution, and we all agreed to move beyond the solution, you know, or beyond the problem, and worked on the solution. So it's really interesting to have sharks in your team. So as a director of a program, it became a difficult task, at one point.
Right. So learning how to communicate with them and how to bring them over to the owl side, right?
Correct. And that's almost impossible. If they think they're right, they're right. There's no compromising at all with a shark. So you have to give them the benefits of, really, if you want to win this debate, these are the benefits if you want to resolve this conflict.
If you think of it that way, I'm more of a baby shark than not.
Okay, unless it's my kids, and then I'm going to go eat my young.
Yeah. I'll go with baby shark. I'm
over.
What's really uncomfortable at the workplace is when you have two shark type people who work together.
Oh no.
Or in my workplace, we have three, and they'll both fight. They'll all fight about one issue that's really not that important. But now they're like calling like the director of all of the doctor's offices about it. It's like, guys, it's a coat rack.
They want to win.
Yeah, that's that winning at all costs sort of thing. So, and that kind of gets in the way of moving forward. And I mean, really, not all conflict is bad, right? Because sometimes conflict leads to, innovative ideas. So, I mean, sometimes it's good to have a little conflict. But as the leader, you want to be able to kind of, take a step back, and that's where you get to diagnose what type of conflict it really is.
And to her disadvantage, again, she had a lot of leadership qualities, but even though she applied for different positions, she was always turned down. And I think it had to do with the fact that she was such a shark that they wouldn't give her the opportunity. But in the same, it makes sense that, in certain fields it's important to be that shark. And I really disagree with Lisa. I see her more as a teddy bear. There's just no way I see her as a shark at all, based on my interactions and how she speaks to people. There's no shark qualities there. I'm sorry, Lisa. I have to disagree.
Maybe she's one of those teddy bears that you hug and then they have fangs.
My children may disagree with you. Tonight I was accused of being a mean mom. So,
so you're doing your job. That's good.
I'm trying. Some days are better than others. But she's in the background, so you're
gonna be grounded after this. Okay, so I know it's 6:39. I think I'll go ahead and cut us a little bit short to give everybody a minute to prepare for the 7 o'clock. So, any other parting comments before I'm gonna stop the recording now? By the way, let's